So today we're continuing with the journey of Bani Israel. We saw how Bani Israel was rescued from Pharaoh by the parting of the sea, and that was a very big miracle. And eventually, when they got to the other side and when they got settled, so this was actually a very big blessing from Allah. But what happened was, just after a short while, when Musa alayhi salam was called for 40 nights to from God's side to Allah Ta'ala to Kohetur, that is when they started, unfortunately, worshipping the calf while he was gone. So that was a very bad thing. That was a very bad thing.
A very dangerous thing to do.
Very dangerous thing, especially because they had already seen, they had already been rescued from one of the harshest situations while they were the slaves of Pharaoh. And they had seen the parting of the sea, which was a very big miracle. And so after that, for them to, get entangled into what Samiri had told them about the golden calf and start worshipping the calf was something very, very bad. That is why then they were told that the only way out of this is for all those people who were active in the worship of the calf to be killed. So that way they could be forgiven. Right? Because it is entirely up to Allah whether He forgives somebody or not. Okay? So He said, I will forgive you, but the way is that, you need to gather in a place and all the people who were active in worshipping the calf, they will be killed by the others. So that is what happened. And after that, then again, when Musa alayhi salam, went to Kohetur, like he used to go for the revelation. So when he went there again, that is where the next incident happened, where he took 70 people with him. It is said that there was probably the best of Bani Israel. And so he took 70 people with him on his next expedition to the Mount Tur. And there, because obviously Allah used to talk to Musa alayhi salam, and so it was a very special kind of an arrangement, relationship. And that is where these people said that we want to see Allah and we will not believe you until we see Allah. Now this was again a very, very bad thing. Just asking to see Allah, may not have been such a big thing, because you could say it was a learning curve, or they were trying to figure out or find out if they could see Allah. But saying that, we will not believe you until we see Allah is ridiculous, because this is Musa, they've just been saved from Pharaoh, the sea has been partitioned, So for them to say, we will not believe you until we see Allah is bad. And so the punishment for this was that some kind of a thunderbolt was sent from Allah instantly at that point when they said that. And all of them died. Okay, so the 70 people...
The most righteous people died instantly.
Yeah, I mean, so the best people that he had taken with him, they died. Now, Musa alayhi salam, interestingly, he was obviously upset and confused. And he said, what am I going to do now? How will I go back to the rest of Bani Israel and tell them that the 70 of the best people that I took with me are gone? They've died. So there's another verse in the Quran where Musa said to Allah, that, this is a difficult situation. So Allah then gave them life back again. So this is again also a very big miracle. Probably the only time in history where a complete group died and were made to come back again. There is obviously the one other incident of as we'll see in the Quran, where somebody actually died and was made to come back alive. But here there's this is almost like an entire nation, like a group of people. So 70 of those people, they were made to come back to life again. And in some traditions, it is said that the way it happened was, so for example, some of the people were alive, and then gradually the rest of the people, sequentially, one by one, they came back to life. So they saw with their own eyes how, they had died and they were coming back to life.
That
So
would be
this helps so that
very interesting, and it should be satisfying for them enough.
exactly. Now you would think that after all these, massive kind of miracles and signs, the parting of the sea, bringing the dead back to life, and all of these things, and you would think that they would never, disobey in a big way. But as we will see along, that they did. So now the question is, before we get to today's lesson, why is there mention of Bani Israel in the Quran so many times?
It's a learning curve for us. It shows that how humans react to extreme situations and extreme blessings, that humans can be ungrateful at certain times.
And the reason for that is that it is learning for the rest of us. Because there is a hadith which says, you will do whatever the people before you did. So, it may not exactly be the same incidents, because of course the parting of the seas, is not happening again and all of those things. But in every person's life, he may go through situations where he gets into impossible situations. And you would think, how am I going to get out of this? And then Allah takes you out of that impossible situation. And it's just a matter of time before, unfortunately, most people will forget, and they will, start focusing on the next thing or the next problem. And they will even forget that, Allah took them out of that situation. And gradually afterwards, they will say, oh, I got out of it because I was smart. But when they're in that problem, when a person is in that kind of a crisis where he sees no way out, then a lot of people will go for prayers, which is the right thing to do. And they will pray to Allah to take them out of that situation.
Yes. But the best of people would be those who, even in the easiest circumstances, would be grateful.
Absolutely, that is correct. So, and that's the whole point of, that is one of the biggest points of religion, actually, is to be grateful and humble, because it is good for that person himself. So if we're grateful at all times, and if we're humble, that puts us in a good situation. Okay. So with that background, we'll continue on the journey of Bani Israel. And so the next thing which happened to them was وَذَلَّلْنَا عَلَيْكُمُ الْغَمَامَ وَأَنزَلْنَا عَلَيْكُمُ الْمَنَّ وَالسَّلْوَىٰ. So Allah says that He provided a shade. So a special cloud was sent, and it used to be, with Bani Israel, and it would protect them from the strong sunshine, and it would be like sort of a protection for them, wherever they went. So this was again a very special sign for them. And similarly,
But clouds are really huge, so if you walk, it seems like the clouds are walking with you. So what's the difference in these two cases?
yeah, but I mean, for under normal circumstances, there may be cloudy days and there may be other days which are not cloudy.
So
For them, so there was always a specific cloud which was very clearly visible, which was shielding them from the sun and from uncomfortable weather. Okay, and similarly, what was sent to them was so that was one big sign. The other big sign was that they were sent with the food, so they didn't have to prepare food, right? Or they didn't have to look for food. So manna was salwa. Manna, they're saying, was some kind of a special, almost a kind of a liquid, which would be there in the mornings and on the grass, and it was like something like honey, which was very easily they could eat. And the other was quails, so like birds, because the meat of birds sometimes is very delicious, and so these were like the quails would just be there, which they could just catch and just go ahead and eat them, cook them and eat them. So this was these were again very special signs from blessings from Allah, and again you would think with these special signs, now after so much is given to a person, he should not go wrong, or he should not be ungrateful. Yeah. And so after all of this, what happens is then that Allah tells them to go into a certain city, and most commentators have said this is probably referring to Jerusalem, although some have said it is referring to another city. So remember, they had come from Egypt, where the Pharaoh was, and they had come to, as they say, the promised land, because, Allah had promised it to them. But as we will read in some of the other verses that, gradually as we move further in the journey, what actually happened was that when they were told to go into the land, there was already somebody there. There was a king and certain people. And so Bani Israel then, they got scared and they were reluctant to fight. And they said, you go ahead and fight, and we will stay here. After all these blessings that Allah had given them. And so what Allah did as a punishment to them is that then they were, they got lost and they were wandering around in the desert for 40 years. This is again another verse in the Quran which we'll subsequently study.
With extreme blessings come extreme punishments as well.
Yes, you're right. Yeah, I mean, so there are large blessings, and then if you are outright disobey, then that is not a good thing.
But the punishments weren't as harsh as the blessings were as good as.
Yeah, I mean, they were given more chances, and this is where if we go back and compare Bani Israel to our own lives, one thing that we can immediately connect with is just like Bani Israel was given so many chances. Similarly, most human beings will get a lot of chances. Almost, you could say, an unlimited number of opportunities are given to people to rectify themselves. So as long as a person is alive, he's got this chance to rectify himself and do the right thing. Yeah. So so now in this particular verse, it is saying, when they were told to enter the city, Allah said, you can enter the city, eat from whatever you find in the orchards and the trees. But when you enter the city, enter it in humility, be humble. And وَقُولُوا حِتَّةٌ. And you say hittatun is a word which means, in that language it meant, may Allah take away the sins from us. Yeah. So, so you should enter the city, being humble and praying for forgiveness. But what actually happened is,
They didn't fight for the.
No, they did, but that's a separate part of the story which is not being discussed here. Okay. That is separately discussed. We'll discuss that when it is brought up. In this specific narration, that part is not mentioned here.
They were lesser in number and weapons.
No, so like I said, that is a very interesting part, the fight. But since that is not mentioned in this narration, so we'll not discuss that here now. What is mentioned here is that they were eventually, when they entered the city, they were told to enter it humbly and praying for forgiveness and saying hittatun, which was that word which meant in those days asking for forgiveness. But what the people did is, some of them, yes, they actually changed this word. They mocked it. They made a joke out of this, and they said, فَبَدَّلَ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا قَوْلًا غَيْرَ الَّذِي قِيلَ لَهُم. So they said some other word like hittatun, and it is different in different. Like for example, they said hintatun or hittatun min sha'ir. So they changed that word. This is sort of almost like making fun of what Allah told them to do. Yes. فَأَنزَلْنَا عَلَى الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا رِجْزًا مِنَ السَّمَاءِ بِمَا كَانُوا يَفْسُقُونَ. So the people who did this, Allah sent down a punishment for them from the skies, and that punishment was basically in the form of a plague. Okay, so it was a sickness which befell them, just because they didn't obey what Allah said, and then they were arrogant.
So even though the people who didn't make fun of it, they got sick.
No. According to this verse, punishment was only sent to those people who did not say hittatun as they were told, but sort of change that word and use a slightly different word. Yeah. Because of the fact that they had disobeyed and the disobedience was done. Okay. So with that, we come to the end of today's session, and next time we will be continuing from here.